You're muted.
What's up, guys? It's your boy GRC. That was a little GRC special right there. The little sneak peek, the demo. They live streamed that. Music, top tier. Guys, we have a crazy episode today, and I have a few requests before we start. I'm not even gonna read it. I gotta move the chat so I don't read it. We have lots to talk about today. But what are we learning about today? What did you just see? It's a little sneak peek. PowerCity. Okay. PowerCity is controversial because it is one, new, two, it's like, one of the first projects that came out with a sacrifice phase. So everyone was giving all that jazz. Notice me and Sam and the Crypto in the Morning crew never cared about that because that's how people raise money. And it's just a fancy word for that. But anyway, lots of controversy, but we got the guys here again. When we first talked, I did not really know what the hell I was learning about. I still was very raw with the streaming. I'm getting a little bit more intimate with the information now. I can absorb it a lot faster. And I'm really excited to learn more about PowerCity today. Guys, we're in a bear market. There's a lot of FUD. There's extreme FUD. And to me, it's just normal. FUD, I live in the FUD zone. Okay. Like, we're 4 years up, 1 year down. Hey, I'm just saying, a couple months from now, tink, we're going up, baby. Cheers, guys. DeFi proof. We have a crazy episode today. I'm going to keep on track today, all right? I'm going to make sure I get some push-ups in, some flexing in the mirror right during the song, and I'm going to get jacked up. We have all the guys in the house. The long vacation, Jesse. Just Ask Jesse, right? Just Ask Jesse is his actual name. We got Sam Stolt in makeup still, and we're ready to go, okay? Oh, yeah, and we have our boy, Tuba Terminator, and he works with the he works with the PowerCity team, and he's going to give technical detail on some things that maybe he's a little bit more expert at when Sam starts short-circuiting about halfway through and wants answers. You know what I mean? And guys, again, me and Sam are super open-minded people. We do not talk shit about these projects behind the scenes. We don't really care, but we love talking to people that make impacts. Me and Sam love guys that punch hard, right? And we don't care if you're 400. We like guys that have a purpose when they wake up, and that's what they want to do, and they're willing to show that to the world. And these guys are here. You saw the testnet. Shit was been looking cool, guys. Be back. DeFi proof. 1 minute and 6 seconds.
You already know what time it is.
Crypto in the morning.
Crypto in the morning.
Crypto in the morning.
Waiting on phone.
Crypto in the morning. Crypto in the morning.
Ready to take notes.
Crypto in the morning.
Crypto in the morning.
Crypto in the morning.
Waiting on phone.
Crypto in the morning. Crypto in the morning.
Ready to take notes.
Smoking a blunt on my way to the gym. 11 a.m. and I'm already tuned in. Got me some hacks and I'm making a stay. Got me some heads on, I'm making it rain. Pay me some maxi and that's just in case. GymRatCrypto sent me to show you the way.
DeFi proof. Yeah.
Crypto in the morning.
Crypto in the morning.
Crypto in the morning.
Waiting on phone.
Crypto in the morning. Crypto in the morning.
Ready to take notes.
Crypto in the morning.
Crypto in the morning.
Crypto in the morning.
Waiting on phone.
Crypto in the morning. Crypto in the morning.
Ready to take notes.
What's up, brother? How you doing?
I'm looking forward to. I'm really looking forward to this show.
Sam, it's Monday. You know how we feel about Mondays here.
Oh, Mondays are amazing. I just got back from the gym. I'm stoked. Mondays are amazing. Every day is amazing, but Mondays are freaking awesome. Last time we chatted with the guys from PowerCity, we had a lot of concepts, and there wasn't a ton of development happening at that point, or at least it was the beginning stages. So I'm super excited to see about the progress.
That's why we cover this every day, because we want to see this stuff. We could have talked to them, never said anything. No, we pay attention a little bit here and there. Have them on again.
Let's see where we're at. Let's see how things have grown.
Sam.
Yes.
Consistency. Guys, you got to be open-minded. This has nothing to do with where you want to put your money today. All right. For me, it just doesn't. I just not how I really operate. I want to understand this stuff intimately to know if I want to support it. Within my, not like, be a promoter of it, but just like, I like to know what's going on. So if I feel really confident in something and I can tell someone that I confidently feel, let's say the Flex protocol is something that I really vibe with. Maybe I don't like the other stuff, perhaps personally, me, I'm more of a financial guy. So what if I use that protocol and I love that protocol and that was a part of it? And what if that was an immutable part of it? Right?
And there's 6 different parts.
It's separate. Yeah.
So Flex is one of those 6 parts, and maybe 5 of them you're like, it's not my thing.
Cool,
not my
but
thing.
It's like
that
there's a lot of what could be in this. There's stuff that they don't even know what could be. There's ideas that, you know what I mean? We come up with ideas every day and we're like, what if that, oh my God.
That's why.
And then you find another guy who comes in, maybe a dev, and he's like, oh, I've done something like this before with something else. And it's crazy. Guys, let's no longer waste everything.
Good morning.
All right, guys, to keep this organized, I'm going to say this first. If you're in this chat and you have not shared this out, share it out right now. I'm going to post some links. Guys, let's go straight to the panel. Let's get to it. Who are you? The long vacation. Let's go first. Who are you? Oh, I know you work for PowerCity. Obviously, we've already met. But for the people that are new here, what's up? How you doing? And what's going on with PowerCity and your interaction with it?
Sure. So I guess you could say I'm the chief cat herder for PowerCity, kind of project management and strategy and design. But we all wear so many hats. I mean, it is a big team of 13 individuals. We divide and conquer when we can. We group up on things when we can. We all brainstorm and challenge each other a lot. The wonderful thing is we have like an abundance of ideas. And we're not afraid to fight each other out to try to break things, to make sure that we can look at it from every angle, right? And that diversity of thought and background, I think, is one of our major strengths. So, my background's in private banking. I worked in private banking for 25 years as a project manager and business strategy and software development, and built many different systems within for onboarding, for statement and reporting engines.
That's a lot of insight. That's a lot of insight. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, you've seen a lot.
Yeah, and I mean, one financial system is just like another after a while, but working with various different complex trust instruments and other things, to solve the large scale complex financial challenges that high net worth individuals face. So how do you deal with planning for future generations and passing on your wealth? How do you manage your tax implications of your wealth? Things like that. And for someone who's maybe just getting started in crypto, not something you're worried about today, hopefully something you're worried about tomorrow in the next bull run, right?
I agree.
And fingers crossed, there's going to be a lot of pulse sacrificers who might really have to consider talking to, a financial planner at some point to handle their newfound wealth in a few years,
That's a huge industry too. People untapped tax, crypto tax people. It's a pain in the ass, I'm sure. But I'm sure there's guys that can do it like the back of their hand. Anyway, long vacation. I'd love to have you on my team if I had a team. I wish you were on it, because that's a lot of insight and a lot of good within the banking, the tech system. That's really awesome. And I could see how you I could see how you how you guys manifested what you're doing. It's probably like a large part about your past and what you kind of seen and experienced.
Well, if you guys want to have just a personal finance and retirement planning type of discussion, we can always get a panel together for that, just to talk about crypto and beyond, right? Where does it fit? How do you get crypto into an IRA or a 401k? If you have a side hustle, can you do a solo 401k and things like that? I mean, there's so many possibilities, and it's just a matter of thinking ahead, because these are things you want to do before you make your millions. Because if you put your crypto in now, right, into an IRA. Then 2 years from now, you'll have it in that IRA tax-free. But in 2 years from now, if it's not in your IRA, you cannot put it into your IRA. Things like that. So there's a multitude of strategies that we can, share with the community on just how to approach personal finance at various different levels, right?
And for each different person, because everybody's got a different point of view and like how, right? That's why it's called personal, right? Finance. Yeah. Let's switch to Tuba. I'd love to hear some of your background and just say hi to the community, share where you're at and maybe where you are in the team with PowerCity. It's a cool logo, by the way.
Hey guys, I'm the lead dev of the PowerCity team. For now, it's mostly anonymous identity, but I have prior experience working in multiple DeFi projects. And when you need to get stuff done, you got a new idea, I'm the guy that's going to get that stuff done. That's what I do.
So is that like, I have this idea for how I want this thing to work, but you're the guy who's like, hey, I can do the code to get that done. Is that kind of like your role?
Not just the code, most of the architecture as well. Because ideas are cheap, the execution is the difficult part. So you can't just come up with a random idea. You need to check the viability and how each moving part of the idea contributes to the entire system. And that's where a lot of the heavy lifting goes. Once you have a clear vision of what you want to achieve, achieving that becomes much easier than when you're grasping around being unsure about what you want to achieve.
Right before we move on to Jesse, when you had mentioned architecture, just can you give me just a tiny bit of context for what that means? So you have an idea, right? And you're like, yes, I can do the code, but that's just one tiny little piece of the bigger picture. What is the architecture?
And let's say let's take the simple example that 2 weeks ago, somebody in our team proposed that we should the Hex auto staking ladder project.
Oops, I think
that does something which is an edge above the other projects. Now, there were a bunch of ideas, but what needs to be decided when bringing this idea into fruition is you need to find out where exactly the money is coming from, where exactly the money is going to go, how long it's going to last, and if it's going to last as long as we think it does, happens when it doesn't, and what's the worst case scenario that can happen. And then bringing around every possible options and edge cases and determining safeguards so that it can run as intended without out on things that you missed had you not had the experience into knowing what exactly is happening.
I think we're losing. I think you're cutting out every like fifth or sixth word.
We'll switch to Jesse for a second, just because your audio is cutting out for a second. We'll just come back in a minute.
What's good, Jesse? You want to say what's up to everybody and give it a little bit
what's going on, everyone? Everyone knows. I think most people out there in the community probably have heard my name before.
My mom would like to know if she's watching, Jesse.
I'm known as Just Ask Jesse on Twitter and Telegram. Of course, I'm involved in several major protocols. Actually, you're gonna start hearing about stuff that I support or I'm involved in one form or fashion as time goes on. I support and assist in anything that I think is viable for making Pulse Chain successful. Right? It can't live with just one single token and one single staking contract, for example. And we think that Pulse Chain is going to go to the moon. That's not how a blockchain works. You need lots of different tools, lots of things to entice people to come over and use the chain. Now, whether our existing community uses all of those things or not, that's irrelevant, right? We all have our personal decisions, what we decide to jump into or not jump into. But to have a successful blockchain, you literally have to have hundreds of things for people to use so that you can get millions of people to come use the chain.
It's going to help with the adoption. I completely agree. Thank you for putting that into perspective.
What does that mean to you, Sam? Just when he was saying that, like, a lot of people would disagree with that statement, I think, and not me personally.
Well, if you have,
but there are a lot of people that think Hex standalone will just last until a time.
Let me touch on that real quick. Let's just pretend for a second that Hex was the only thing on the chain.
Mhm.
What you would see is you would have 3 platforms. You'd have PulseX, you'd have Pulse as the native gas coin, and then you'd have Hex. And it would be the existing Hex community, and all we'd be doing is swapping back and forth amongst each other. You'd have people that, oh, I want to buy some Hex, so they spend their Pulse to buy some Hex. But then the next guy says, oh, I need to get some Pulse, and he sells this Hex for his Pulse. And it literally just goes back and forth, like you're passing a baseball back and forth playing catch. It's absolutely ridiculous. If you want the price of the gas coin to continue to go up and up and up forever, right, you just need to have mass adoption. And then there is the hard slaw thing, which some people say is controversial as well, but it's true.
What did you call it? Hard saw?
Hard slaw, like where if the native coin on a chain goes up in value, because all the tokens are paired to that thing, they also go up in value with it, right? So the more people that you can get to come into the chain, and all these people are buying Pulse coin, it actually helps the price of Hex. It helps the price of the Flex coin and the Liquid Loans thing and the Watt and all these different tokens that reside on the chain. It's beneficial to all of them if you have more users, even if those users are using things that you don't particularly like.
Completely agree. I think of it as, from a very simple analogy, it's like this tunnel's being punched into the ethos of crypto, and that tunnel is Pulse, and you can build things off of that to fill the tunnel, right, or passageway between, you know, two pieces of land with water, and each new thing that comes on there pulls in new water, which is money from different places, whether the people who are in Hex or Pulse X or Pulse want to use that or not. It still tends to be helpful because there's people who care about other shit than what we care about, right? There's people who see a different point of view or find value in unique circumstances, just like the long-term vacation was mentioned with personal finance. It's personal. Like my fucking life. You know what I mean? You were about to say something.
The long-term vacation.
I did say, I apologize. Sorry.
No,
I'm just thinking like permanently vacation.
More proper.
Hey, we're all working towards a permanent vacation, right? That's the whole goal of all this. But I mean, ultimately, for Pulse to be successful, for Pulse X to be successful, you want adoption, you want volume, right? So if you're just sitting around trading in and out of Hex all day, look, Richard Hart could have done that, right? But no, he thought bigger. He knew we want to vampire attack Ethereum to bring all those users onto a better chain, right? And suddenly you have the potential for mass adoption, for an enormous number of people above and beyond what one protocol has for adoption, right? Which then also opens the doors for more people to adopt that protocol, right? So how do you bring more people in the door to Hex? You create an entire chain around it that is cheaper, faster, better. You give everybody a free airdrop to get them there, right? And now, right, because now they know about Pulse Chain, they're going to learn about who's behind Pulse Chain. Okay, then they'll learn about Hex as a result of that, right? So, I mean, all things are leading back to kind of, you know, making more in routes to this protocol, but people are not forced to have to use it. And the end all is Pulse Chain, right? Its success cannot be solely tied to one protocol. You want volume, you want lots of volume, so you can burn lots of gas fees, which, you know, it burns more pulse, which causes or drives that deflationary action, right? But you're not going to get there with like a couple of transactions here or there.
Can we talk about Binance for a second and how that kind of, let's do like a mini compare and contrast for a second. So like Binance has a lot of volume, right? Because it's cheaper and there's maybe more variability, more random stuff you could do, more leverage, blah, 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 blah. Well, I guess you could do that anywhere. But anyway, the volume over there is higher. I don't know if the dollar amount is higher than Ethereum. I would say no, definitely not.
If you look at Pancake versus Uniswap, Uniswap has more dollar value, but the transactions are higher on Pig.
Must be much higher because they're all small. Which one's better, right? And I mean, they still take mass adoption for sure, but like their model is almost like all inclusive, just everything goes, million coins a
Well,
day.
that's really how all blockchains are. It's just like Binance.
Just
People
cheaper.
just block there. People just because it just works. So you see shit coins launch over there. You see good protocols launch over there. There's
So
all
won't the
sorts of
same
stuff
thing
there.
happen on Pulse Chain though? You just like you
Yeah,
kind of
you would hope. Now
It's just
imagine
a flaw.
a Binance. I think at one point Binance made it up to like 800 some X in the value of the native coin. That's significant, right? But it never could have gone up in value that much if the only thing they had over there was one single protocol.
Yeah, and they have the benefit of being tied to an on-ramp, right? Which made kind of a package deal for people, right? They can get from their fiat onto Binance Exchange, from there to BSC, and be able to play around with things very easily, right?
Is
So
that what
imagine a
made
day.
Binance work so well? Do you think it's that on ramp? It's that off ramp? Are there other layer ones, for example? This is a question more that don't have on and off ramps that are successful.
Well, think of it. Binance has a dedicated route almost, right? So it's all under one roof in a sense. It's all Binance's. It's Binance's chain, right? I mean, there are exchanges and easy ways to get to other chains. You can buy Avalanche, AVAX directly on Coinbase and send that to Avalanche and do DeFi there, right? That's an easy on ramp, but you're going through Coinbase. They kind of had an end-to-end solution in a sense. So think about it when there are, on fiat on-ramps and on-ramps directly supporting Pulse Chain, right? You have an easier route. And then, think about further down. And this is why Richard has that grand vision, right? He wants to do a full stack so that you have that type of, full stack, meaning he wants the wallet, he wants a stable coin, he wants the fiat on and off ramps, and he wants the blockchain that's faster and cheaper, right? And you basically then have what you're seeing over there, and you can bring in that volume and that adoption because now you have everything at people's fingertips. It's all designed to work together like Apple products, right? They just work together. So if you can have that kind of interoperability and ease of use and ease of adoption for your chain, right? And you got that full stack developed for it, you're winning, right?
The more places that you can have an avenue to get to the chain, the better.
No,
So
but isn't it going to happen though? Like no matter what.
Listen, there's a lot of layer ones that exist, but it's like, how do you even get over there? So one example, like Moon River.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of like Phantom Chain or Avalanche Chain, but it's like, how the hell do you get there? You can't buy the native coin on Coinbase. You can't buy it on crypto.com. It's like, where do you even go to get that coin? It's a really complex,
You're so right.
process just to get the coin so you can have the gas, so you can send it there, so you can start doing stuff on the chain. So the level of adoption they have is nowhere near something like AVAX. You can buy AVAX right there in Coinbase and send it straight to AVAX chain, and you're good to go. You can start transacting. Or ETH.
Okay.
ETH is the king in this game at the moment, right?
Mhm.
It's super easy to get ETH thousands of places, and now you're on the ETH. You can send it to your MetaMask, and you're on the ETH chain, and you're doing whatever you want. Now, the other piece of this puzzle is not just the on and off ramps; it's the bridges, so that you can get people from other blockchains into your blockchain. And Long Vacation will probably talk about that in regards to PowerCity, right? So look at Richard's bridge. He's building, or the Pulse Chain team is building a bridge to ETH. Well, that checks the block on one chain, but there's dozens of other chains that you need to have an avenue to get to and from if you want those users to come in and give them an easy way to come onto the chain.
Because if you increase the friction of that, like Jesse's saying, it's just, if you're just like buying hacks, it's complex for most people to grasp. But if you do the same thing for people to get to if somebody's on AVAX or and there's no direct way to get over to Pulse, they're like, okay, I'll just stay here, right? Because they have to go to Ethereum, then they have to go from Ethereum to Pulse. Like that's a process. So that's a good segue into PowerCity, Long Vacation. Do you want to kind of, because there's 6 parts, right? Of PowerCity.
Yeah,
You want to touch on each part a little bit?
Before he touches on it, guys, I tweeted this out. I just posted it. Do me a favor. If you're in here, click the link. Go post it. Go on, boys. Sorry about that.
Go ahead,
No,
sir.
it was actually a good segue into our transformer product because that is a cross-chain swap, right? And until these direct fiat on-ramps and R-ramps are built for Pulse Chain, until then, the only option we have right now to get onto Pulse Chain is through Ethereum on Pulse Ramp, right? And that's the bridge that Richard Hart's building. Now, we still have to deal with Ethereum fees. We know ETH 2.0 is not going to fix the fees, right? Fees are cheaper now because Ethereum's cheaper, right? But that's not going to last forever. So, why do you want to onboard someone still going through Ethereum and having to pay, 20% of your capital, or for small onboards, right? Going through Ethereum just eats into your capital, right? When instead, if you can come in through Binance Smart Chain, BNB Smart Chain, or Matic, or Avalanche, or Phantom, right, that have super low fees, that if you can bridge in through those chains, you save more of your capital, and then you can get or PulseX or some other project like Watt, if you want to come, stake Watt in our core product, right? So Transformer is designed to allow that cost-effective bridging of value from those cheaper EVM chains, Ethereum virtual machine compatible blockchains, and bring that value from the native coin over there to Pulse on Pulse Chain and vice versa. So if you do want to onboard somebody, right, and they have a Coinbase account, great. Or if they have a crypto.com or whatever, right, you buy Avalanche, right, get some AVAX, bring it into your MetaMask wallet, and through our transformer, you can go directly from that AVAX to Pulse on Pulse Chain, right? And in the background, we'll swap you from AVAX into our Watt coin, right? We'll bridge the Watt coin over between a mini version of our core over to our core on Pulse Chain. And from there, we'll swap you from Watt into Pulse. And now you have Pulse sitting on Pulse Chain. All that's going to happen in the background. You don't have to worry about monitoring those transactions and doing everything manually. It's not a 5-step process for you. You click it once, it'll take you through the process, and you're there. And now you can do whatever it is. You have Pulse in your hands to be able to go transact and pay for transaction fees on chain, right?
It's okay. So that's cool. Super cool. I just learned about like a trustless bridge over with Bitcoin. It's Sovereign, I think it's called, where you have, I forget the name of the chain, but it's running alongside Bitcoin, and they have the wrapped Bitcoin there and everything like that's related to Bitcoin, and they have a trustless bridge over there. I don't know if that's the case with like the Omni copy that PulseX is using. Is it going to be a trustless bridge that you guys are creating as well?
No. So a true trustless bridge with 0 admin keys is pretty much so far technically not feasible. I mean, Richard tried, right? And he had a really smart team of people working on looking at all the existing bridge technologies out there that they could fork. And there was nothing out there that would be truly trustless and reliable. So Tuba can speak to just some of the challenges.
Have you guys heard of that Sovereign DEX for Bitcoin? Because the idea behind that one is trustless. I don't know what I like. Tuba could probably get into the details.
We're gonna
Tuba
will probably have more insight on why that is an issue. Let's just start with like, why is that an issue with the trustlessness? And I'm sure it's technical, obviously, but if you don't mind, Tuba.
Yeah, see, trustlessness occurs in many phases. It comes down to what exactly you mean when you say trustless. Most of the description of trustless that people are giving right now is we own a zero interference, zero trust, a flat layer marketplace or a peer-to-peer matching service that provides you the bridging option, and the nodes are run by the very few trustless bridges that exist. They provide the node interactions, and then the security of it is tied to the valid confirmations on the chains that are being transacted to and from. So that completely depends on the what's that called, the security of the bridge itself. So just because some chains are viable and a bridge is reliable doesn't mean that you won't be subjected to some loss. Because when you're transacting, your transaction relies as much as on the host chain that you are transacting from as it does on the
Oops.
transacting to.
So
Now,
what was
there
that?
are highly centralized chains which have often.
Your
Kuba,
audio
what
is
was
in
it?
and out,
What
too.
was it you said? So from the host chain, and then it cut out for a second.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No worries.
So your security relies as much on the host chain as it does on the target chain, because there are instances where in the event of highly centralized chains or even moderately centralized chains where there are takeover attempts and then transactions have been invalidated. There are events of bridge splits and other issues. So most of the bridge exploits that have happened till now have happened on the part of the emission of on the emission side in the target chain, where somebody got access to the keys that was being. See, the thing is, till now, most EVM compatible chains, the end user addresses are separate from smart contract addresses. In a future update, what they're trying to do is merge the whole thing into one uniform standard. The proposal has been there for a really long time, but that hasn't yet materialized. Now, the thing is, a smart contract can't make a call. It can't submit a transaction. It can submit a transaction on behalf of a user, but eventually it's the user paying the gas. It's always the user paying the gas. So in those events of executing those transactions, it doesn't matter if it's bridge or if it's some other immutable protocol. It is always some user that moves forward the protocol and actually calls the transactions. Now, in the event of the bridges, somebody has to call the mint function. Now, either you can make a bridge that is completely non-reliant on a centralized service that has the user make the transfer, that has the user track the transfer, and that has the user withdraw it. But that's just bad user interface, and there are options for that already available. But it is difficult for some to convince someone that, see, this is better for your security, but you just need to do 10 extra steps for that.
Couldn't that just
What they
be
want,
all like, because the user interface is just like how the person is going to, like me, right? How I'm going to see that, where they are creative, resourceful, right? You could make that so that it is simple for me to see, right?
yes. Now imagine a completely trustless bridge where you submit a transaction on one chain, and then you take the validation transaction hash from that chain, and then you submit it to a node network. The node network verifies the header of the transaction from the block header and checks if the transaction is viable, and then it passes off on to some other validation source, and then you submit your target transaction on the target chain, and then it again verifies with the node network. There's a little bit of Oracle involvement there in the between on each side of validation, and then you press the withdraw button to actually withdraw the assets that you have transferred. Now, again, when you are transferring to the target chain, you need to have gas already present in the target chain to be able to call the withdraw function. So that's a really messy user interaction. Now, what users want is, I don't care what you do with my money. I just want to press one button. You just
Correct.
give me on the other side. That's where the whole centralization issue comes in. So it's not that it's not possible. It's possible, but it's not really viable to encourage a user to actually use it.
But that's where we're
Because-
going to go to eventually, right? There's no way that, like, my mom is going to do 16 steps to try to, like, you know what I mean? At some point, these things are going to be like so simple and much easier to utilize, so that, like, I can be like, yeah, you're over there. Just go through here. You click on this one button, and then it switches your network to go to this other place.
To do that, though, is why we have centralization in certain ways, right? So there's always a compromise between complexity, right, security, and ease of use, right? Because if you want to give everyone every bell and whistle and every option, you give them complexity, right? If you want simplicity, they don't have the optionality of customizing it to their needs, right? Or simplicity means you have only one way of doing it, and we do everything else behind the scenes for you, which means some central thing has to remain controlled to act on your behalf, right? So it's that balance of usability and reliability and things like that we have to kind of strike, right? Because if you were to design everything to be purely trustless, you as a user would be forced to jump through 30 extra hoops to get anything done, because you are the only one in control of every step along the way, and you have to do every event along the way, versus having something acting on your behalf to simplify the process and give you like a one click.
Can't that just be done with smart contracts from one, as Tuba was mentioning? So there's, say, a sequence of 5 steps. Right, so the first one is X, right? So the smart contract interacts that way, which says that this is going to interact with this one in this way, and you have that sequence of steps, so that literally the user just presses this button, and then they switch network, and they're like, "Oh shit, my shit's right here."
But see, the challenge is, what Tuba was describing is you are initiating a transaction on one chain, saying, "I want to send X value over," right? That transaction has to be read by a node on your sending chain. Let's say you're sending from Avalanche, right? So you need a node on Avalanche to confirm, yes, this transaction really did occur. Here's the hash, here's the details, right? Then you need some middleware to be able to say, okay, I saw that. Now I need to go and initiate a transaction over on this other chain to reflect what happened over here. And that middleware has to be able to now connect the dots between 2 databases that were never meant to talk to each other, right? So that bridge is telling, okay, something happened on AVAX. Now I need to go initiate some action on Pulse Chain, whether it is to reserve tokens for you based on the value of AVAX that you locked up over here, or whether it's to mint something or wrap it or whatever, or send it to your wallet, right? Something needs to tell Pulse Chain contract to do something, right? Which then means that needs to transmit information. Then you need a node on the Pulse Chain network to confirm that those things actually occurred. You connect all the dots, you triple check everything, and then you release your funds, right? So you can see this is an extremely complex set of actions that, we're asking someone to have a one-click experience for. So
it seems like it'll go there, whether like the details are available at this moment in time. I just don't see it being like, I understand that there's technical like issues that I am not privy to, that Tuba and yourself probably have, a little bit more intimate details on. But when you look at how the world is like, goes through a phase of like making it easier and simpler to increase adoption for people. And if you go towards the fringes more, yes, there's things that have the crazy amount of optionality, right? Your feature set that people like, right? So in the center, you got the super easy, simplest option, which could be more costly to do, but it's this, press this button here, switch your thing, and instead of getting $100 at the other side, you get $98 because that is the gas fee for that side, or whatever the case is, to just have it just extremely simple. Because I think that right there solves a market problem, right? It solves an issue that helps increase adoption even further, because that thing is just not even available today.
No, exactly. To do what you just said requires trust. So that's the balance that we need to find from a user's perspective, right? How much trust are you willing to give a system to give you simplicity and ease of use, right? And Tuba can speak to that better than I can, but it's not as clear cut as some people like to make it in crypto, that everything can be trustless. And not everything is necessarily, best performed trustless. So,
and nothing in crypto is trustless at this point, really. I mean, Uniswap is good. PancakeSwap is pretty good, I guess. I mean, Hex is like not necessarily. I mean, it just depends on your definition, right? Like, depends on the definition. Is it controlled by a central entity, or does it move automated by clicking the button? Does it matter? And I'm more of a question. Does it matter if it's we're all just trusting Richard Hart anyway. we just trust Richard Hart because he's done a lot of smart shit, right? And he has a lot of good credit because he makes a lot of really educated things happen. He's made a lot of millionaires. He gave a lot of free coins. So there, I feel like you can't. The trust has to come somewhere from something.
But it's is a person,
trust-
right? Entity, or is it like a
Right.
system? A system. So, sorry, I think that was Jesse. You were about to say something.
Yeah, so there's even protocols that people think are trustless because it's like there's a governance function, and they think, oh, well, we have to vote for a change in the protocol. Even that, there's still trust because just because you put something up for proposal and then everyone votes and then the dev team
me and
says,
Sam don't fall for that shit.
yeah, and then the dev team says, okay, cool, we'll move forward with that. You're still trusting that dev team to make the changes as described and to do it right and to have the changes audited and have everything perfect, like as they
And then
migrate
you have
to
to look at
whatever
how
it
much
is the
funds they
proposal is
have,
for.
how many funds they have compared to the rest. That's generally where it ends up, right? There's one project that actually kind of has an attempt at working on that. Actually, it's called Cult DAO. But anyway, the problem is like it's a DAO, but like they have 99% of the money. So what are they gonna do? Like,
Right, and
Yeah.
even the protocols where the supply is a little more diversified, it's like, well, even though there's governance there, you still have to trust the team and the in particular the devs to do the changes as described in the proposal and to do them correctly or
it's a good
make
point.
it so it can't get hacked or whatever. There's always trust. Now there are
Yeah.
protocols that have absolutely zero trust just because it's all worked out, everything's done. The protocol will never change from that point forward. But that's not practical in all protocols. It's just not.
See,
Tuba,
I'd like to
you
add
wanted to weigh
a
in?
little thing to that.
Please.
That trustless is a really vague word. I would prefer it's either immutable or it's not.
Right.
And please define that. So when you say trustless is an ambiguous term
back.
to describe what we're talking about versus immutable. Can you define those in your language? How you define those? How your story of the world for those two terms? So I can get a better
trustless-
understanding.
Trustless is you are believing some supreme entity is going to be executing actions based on a perfect ethics code. In which case, in this case, it's mostly DAOs where we are trusting the user's vote to be accountable for, and to be the stake that drives the direction. But we have seen multiple instances where there have been a majority proposal passed, but the dev team just said that we don't want to do that anymore.
Do you
But
think
immutable
trustless
here-
has? I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'll ask you
Yes,
something.
no, you were asking?
So I see trustless is more of a. Do you want to trust me, Tuba, with your money, or do you want to trust this code that you can take a look at? This is what it's going to do, and you've seen it actually do what it says it's going to do. Like that's how I'm seeing trustless. Because
Again,
like
we
the DAO, I
keep-
don't see that as like duh. Like I mean, I think we all agree that that's definitely you have to have trust in individual human beings. Where I'm talking about trustless, I'm seeing that as in, and maybe that's how you're defining immutable, right? As you say you want to have this function completed or you want to accomplish this set thing. This is the series of steps that's going to happen in this code. I don't touch it, and there's no way for me to actually touch it, that's how I'm seeing that. Where I don't know, is that how you're defining the immutable? Just to make sure that I'm on the same page as you.
See, we prefer saying that code is law, but at the end of the day, that code has been written by someone, and we are still trusting the competence of the coder to be the law. It's not actually the code, it's the coder's level of knowledge and our awareness about the situations that might arise in certain cases and our capabilities to handle those situations when they arise. Now, regarding the Uniswap example that you gave, Uniswap is immutable. But see, Uniswap upgrades happen in the form of Uniswap v2 and v3. Uniswap is a platform that provides a fixed utility and it does nothing else, and you can't add changes to it without creating something completely new, which was in the form of v2 and v3. Now, let's say you are a project owner and you are listing your token on Uniswap. Again, the people are left at the mercy of the deployers of liquidity to lock that liquidity up for a certain amount of time so that those people are not wrecked. Again, you are trusting the competence of the coders that wrote the locking contracts to write them well so that you are not wrecked. Again, when the Uniswap v2 was upgraded to v3, the project deployers relied on the competence of the locking contract coders to have already foreseen this possible change in the future, and already had it hard coded in their immutable contract before in time that when Uniswap v3 launches, the users should be able to migrate the liquidity from v2 to v3 without having to hold the LP in their wallets. These are a lot of assumptions, and we can't always have all the assumptions on our book when we are starting out. We are constantly learning new things, even when we are not, somebody else is, and that knowledge has to be implemented somehow. So nothing is truly trustless. It is completely at the behest of the competence of the coder. And then there's immutability. Again, the drawback of immutability is you can't really change something. It's like, imagine you had a Lego house. You can do whatever you want with your house every single day. But you made a house of concrete. You have to break that down and make a brand new house from the ground up. That's just lost effort. Lost effort, lost capital, lost hours. But that's what
Well,
the
because you
industry is
have the
proceeding.
pros and cons on each side of those.
How far can you extrapolate in the future, Sam, in an immutable product, though? It's like how
Everything's
far.
going to be going that direction, though.
No, but I
No,
know that
no,
like
that's
you're basically just saying your project's going to fail at some point, like because you can't update it in the future is unknown.
Well, that's what Tuba just mentioned. You come out with V2, V3. You know,
Right.
there's presumably going to be a V4 at some point. You would guess.
Technology is going to change so much. The
No,
conversations
but see,
we're
the
going to
thing
have
that
in a
I
year.
mentioned it.
Go ahead.
Yes, see, but the thing that I mentioned here is we prefer to say it as Uniswap v2 and Uniswap v3. Just because they were made by the same team doesn't mean we can counter them. We can call them as an upgrade. They are basically two separate products that don't rely on each other at all, that don't even know about the existence of the previous version.
Well, there's routing software that I think was implemented in V3 that does, you can route it through V2 if the price is appropriate. I think it was implemented in December.
That's the
there's
front
separate
end. That's the front
contracts.
end.
So, I mean, to go back to Tuba's analogy of a concrete house, basically what they did was they built another concrete house right next to the first concrete house. And then they built a third one next to the second one, right? And they'll build a fourth one next to that. So they can't go back and just rearrange the rooms. They can't go back and saw holes in the walls and redo, the layout and everything. They're just going to build another thing right next to it. And now they're going to have 4 versions of Uniswap that are out there that they need to somehow, well, they can't even deprecate them because they're immutable. So they don't have an admin key to shut them down, right? So there's pros and cons to that.
And also imagine it, like it would have been a different scenario if the team had worked and researched on it for like 10 years, like designing some sort of nuclear launch code system. It has to be super secure and it has to last the next 60 years. But we are in a market that relies on the philosophy of build fast and break things. You need to be able to fix the things when you break them. So you're building fast and you're building forever at the same time. How exactly is that going to last?
Do you think, I think it's going to be more the segmented pieces that somebody can just build blocks with, so to speak. You have a modular set of code that's this is the trustless bridge. This is the, AMM bot for, stablecoins. This is the AMM bot for this kind of thing. And if somebody wants to build something, just like you would with like those website building product things that are like, Square, I think is one of them, or like one of them starts with a W, where you just like grab this shit, you grab this shit, you grab this shit, you put it all together. Like I see that as being the individual pieces are built by amazing teams who are thinking about how to do these things. Sure. And then you can either upgrade that to 1.2 of this version, or this is just thing is so like perfectly built. The law, as Tubo was putting it, was so perfectly constructed by whoever constructed this that other people see the value in that, and they take that piece of law and they implement it into their larger structure. But there's a bunch of individual pieces all put together that are all trustless. But we can move on to
Sam, I want to mention something to get the conversation moving back to like the basics a little bit. No, it's cool. No, this is great.
I appreciate the kind.
This has been incredible, absolutely insightful, and makes a lot of sense. Everything makes a lot of sense. Like, and it's all, and again, all this made sense to me before, but having other guys to talk it through with, because you don't know what you don't know, right? Like, I don't know what happens on the back end. So, but talking to him, that can square things out for me a little bit in my mind. That's why I love having guys on here that are willing to share their, experience. You could keep a lot of stuff to yourself. You know what I mean? We all have a lot of secrets that we could all keep to ourselves, but that's not as fun as spreading the love. But let's get back to the basics for a second.
Yeah.
When we talk about the core, let's talk about the finances for a second. So yeah, exactly. So let's talk about like the money in, money out situation in the beginning. So there's a sacrifice phase, right? And it has not ended yet.
Correct. So the sacrifice, is going to remain open for PowerCity until whenever the hard fork of, Ethereum for Pulse Chain is announced, right? So the idea there was to give people the opportunity who very early on were all sacrificed out, right? They were tapped after participating in multiple events, that they wanted more time to be able to build up their reserves, to be able to get in later on, right? And we wanted this to be equitable so that people weren't getting priced out every day that they were delayed, right? Whereas other events are designed to force people in on the first 3 days, otherwise they're kind of screwed, right? We wanted this to be as balanced and even as possible. Let people participate in however they can, whenever they can, right? We'll give bonuses for those wallets that participated in the sacrifices for Pulse Chain, for PulseX, for liquid loans, for internet money dividend token, right? So you'll get up to a maximum combined bonus of 55.55% if the same wallet sacrifices for PowerCity. And
real
then
quick, if there's new people in here that before you throw your money in anything, just learn. I'm not telling you to do or do not do anything. Please just learn. There is a learning curve here. We're all learning. I promise. And anyone that says they're not is silly right now. This is a moving. Don't put all your money in one place is what I like to tell people. I have not personally sacrificed for PowerCity. I have done several videos on PowerCity, and I like PowerCity. It's not, but my financial situation is my financial situation. You know what I mean? And yours is yours, not Mr. Long Vacations. His is not mine. Mr. Jesse's, his is not mine. I have to make decisions for myself. Everything bad that happens in my life is a direct result of my actions, period. So shut the fuck up about the sacrifices and everything. I hate when people mention it. I hate when people say it's a negative thing. People raise money for shit. Shut up and just go away then.
It's not a bad thing.
And if you do want to protect people, if you feel like you need to protect people, do it in private. Just do it in private. Say, hey, this is not where I'm putting my money for this reason, that reason, and the other reason. Perfectly.
If you have questions, we are in Telegram like practically 24/7.
And you're like the head hex
Pulse person.
No, but for the Telegram groups.
Yeah.
Everyone.
Yeah, I mean, I've been helping admin PulseChain.com, CryptoGov, Hex Streams, PulseX, and several others, along with Jesse. Right, he and I were some of the earlier admins that came up through the community because we were very involved. And, we got involved in this just like everyone else did early on, just trying to figure out what is Pulse Chain all about. Right. So we've gone through the same, learning curve. We put in the time and the effort. We've spent hours and hours and hours supporting the community through the Pulse Chain sacrifice. And then again, through PulseX sacrifice. Right. So we are definitely, our background, we all came together through Hex and Pulse Chain. That's how PowerCity came together, right? And if you have any questions around what PowerCity is building, how it's going to work, if you want any, have any questions around the team itself, just come into our Telegram and ask, right? So we will answer anything and everything that is within our power to answer, the information that has already been released, right? So if you want my name and address, I'm sorry, I'm not going to give that to you, but I can tell you what we're building for the core and how PowerCity is designing DeFi money Legos for Pulse Chain, right? Because that idea of a concrete house versus a Lego house that you can reconfigure to your needs, and that your house is different than my house because I have different needs, right? That is the true power of crypto and the whole power of DeFi, the whole point of DeFi, right?
Can you?
Hextech says, disclaimer, I did share a cigar with Long Vacation in Vegas.
Hey,
we love
Good
Hextech.
times.
We love Hextech here. Really good guy.
No, he's an awesome guy. Definitely a pleasure to share a drink with.
It's gonna be interesting over the next.
I can't wait to get a drink with some of you boys in the future too.
I was just gonna say it's gonna be interesting to meet some people in person and catch up actually in human form. Will be a lot of fun.
Well, if you're coming to Las Vegas for PulseCon, we are doing an after party on Wednesday, September 7th, down on Fremont Street at the Backstage Bar and Billiards Club. So we have DJ Lethal and Sid from Slipknot going to be doing a DJ show.
That'll be such a good time, dude.
Yeah, we got Crystal Method going on the main stage there afterwards. So we're gonna have some awesome music. We're gonna have a boxable casita set up in the backyard, so you can see what the boxable NFT deal that we have going on can get you. We'll have hand rolled cigars. We'll have a taco truck. I mean, it's going to be a party, and definitely everyone's invited, and it's going to be like one of the most affordable things you're going to find in Las Vegas that weekend. Tickets are under $50. So, check out at PowerCity.io on Twitter, and you'll see a link to the event there. You can also come to our Telegram, t.me/PowerCity.io. And the links are there as well. And thank you. You just posted it in the comments, so appreciate that.
Okay, so I want to touch on some of I wanted to get into Flex eventually, but so we talked about the transformer. Yes, so let's get some gates going. So we talked about the transformer, right? In plenty of fucking detail for
that's what it's called, right? So
yes.
This is called the transformer.
Yep.
Which I appreciate the dialogue. Okay, so there's 5 other pieces to this that a lot of people here.
Can we start with the core?
Go talk about the whole shebang, basically.
I'll list out the
and
6 things that we're building right now.
You can tell your boys to hop in whenever you want to, just to take a break, and you guys can just go at it. I'm going to take some notes.
Sure. The 6 things that we have 3 in development, right? And the video that you started us with showed a little bit of the core. The core is the central staking platform for PowerCity, right? You stake Watt, and you earn a share of the revenue generated by all the other dApps in the ecosystem, okay? So now, what are all those other dApps, right? We have 5 things that we're building, 2 actually getting ready to go into testing relatively soon, and others that are in development right behind it. We have the Transformer cross-chain swap that we talked about. We have the Pixel Park NFT marketplace. We have the Amplifier Loan Booster, which is an automated front end to Liquidity and Liquid Loans and other forks similar to that. So you can run the Haunted strategy on autopilot if you want. We have the Accelerator, which is a yield compounder, which is designed to take your liquidity providing rewards that you're earning in PulseX and automatically compound those by claiming the incentive tokens and reinvesting it back into your LP so that you get a larger stake that you can earn more incentive tokens and so on, right? So automatically compounds where you don't have to do that all manually. And then, of course, we have the Flex platform, which is will be an immutable pooled perpetual hex staking treasury that rewards the growth earned by the treasury in Flex tokens. So it's a lot of things going on at once. That's why we have a big team, right?
Which one are you personally most excited about? Seriously, I think there's noise in your back.
My bad.
Oh my gosh, that's like asking me to pick my favorite child.
Dude, I'm so jealous that you get to work on this shit with people that actually know what they're doing, dude. I'm not saying that. I just don't. Obviously, insight is so little compared to what you guys have. But like Sam, in the future, working on something where we could be creative and move forward and have a team, like I bet you really feel fulfilled as your work. I mean, I know the finances, that's all part of it too, but just as far as your work related, I know I have so much passion in my work. I can only imagine how fun this has been, because look how great this website is. I mean, this is really nice.
Well, we actually have a redesign for that will be coming soon-ish. We keep tweaking, and but it is incredibly sharp and awesome redesign. Our Web3 developer Simon is just a mastermind with these things. He developed the core front end that you saw in that video, and that's that style and methodology that we're using across so many things here, including the new website. So really awesome look. And we'll be excited to get that, roll that out soon. And we'll have information on the new platforms that are not on the website now. For example, Accelerator, we actually split it to two pieces, right? Accelerator used to be both the liquid loans front end and the yield compounder. It just became too difficult to talk about two different things under one name. So we split them into Accelerator and Amplifier, right? And Flex is a new concept that we've been working on for a while, and only announced recently over the past couple of weeks. We just posted a new Medium article for that, kind of explaining exactly what that is and how the process will work, what it's trying to accomplish. So that's in our Telegram as well, if people want to check that out.
Is that going to be like what the Maxi guys are doing with base token and that kind of stuff, where you're trading in hex for minting of Flex?
I'd like to call it the Forever Maxi.
Is it a derivatives play? Is kind of what is it just like is it a direct derivatives play off of Hex on that, where you're getting
off of a perpetual Hex ladder, right? Yeah. So instead of being exposed to one term, one duration of a Hex stake, you're exposed to both short and long term within one treasury. So this
is what I was mentioning the other day. We had just kind of like touched briefly on base, which is like Maxi's new thing that they're doing. And theirs is a 1 year, but you could see an opportunity to do something where it's staggered, where you have some at different durations, throughout that, and make that into
the pros and cons of immutability, right? Like the pros and cons. It's just like, it's always right in front of your face. It's like you're locked into this. There's a value prop for this, but it's no longer, there's no variable there. There's not much you can change. So what are they going to do? They're going to come out with just more immutable, like separate timing kind of use cases. And I think it's really interesting. I want to play this teaser one more time for a second before we hop back in, because I do want to look into the buttons to see what's actually, that teaser is absolutely amazing. I don't know if Bullish is still there. I'm going to pull it up.
And then I wanted to also ask about the accelerator, because that's very interesting. Like,
what's the accelerator again?
So the accelerator is a yield compounder, and it's meant to automate wherever if you're yield farming or liquidity providing, rewards farming, right? So in PulseX, if you provide, say, EUSDC, PUSDC liquidity, you might be farming on that liquidity pool incentive tokens, right? So what do you do with those incentive tokens when you get them? Are you just going to sell them? Well, you could compound them, which means you would claim your incentive tokens and sell those to buy more EUSDC and PUSDC, add them to liquidity. So now you're farming a larger share of the incentive tokens, right? And what if you just kept doing that every day, automatically compounding that position? When you go to exit your liquidity pool position, you're going to have more than you started with, right? So you could turn around and you could dump the incentive tokens if you wanted to, but rolling them into something else that is yield bearing or yield generating, like you're earning transaction fees by providing that liquidity, right? You're actually generating more income for you than just selling the token outright.
This is really important for wealth creation. So if you're earning some sort of yield, whether it's on PulseX or liquid loans or wherever you're earning yield, and your account, just your claimable balance of tokens just keeps going up and up and up, but they're just sitting there in a claim status. They're doing nothing for you. right? So you as an individual have to go in, like should go in frequently or often, maybe daily, or even some people will wish to go click claim buttons in these protocols multiple times a day. Lock in those straight to their wallet as liquid, and then put them back in as liquidity providing or staking in whatever protocol they're in. But that's a pain. It's really a pain in the ass to do that multiple times a day. But it helps you a lot, because instead of your money just sitting there doing nothing for you, you're putting it to work for you immediately. And what auto compounding or accelerating does is it just does all that for you. Like when you get those earnings, it will automatically put them where you wanted them to go. So you're like putting your money to work for you automatically as frequently as you chose on the platform.
Could the LP tokens be, staked separately in a way similar to like Cake, where maybe the person wants to stake them instead of putting them back into that specific pool? Or can you talk about that?
Well, there's a lot of different ways we can run these strategies, right? And this goes back to what I was saying about money Legos. The whole idea of these is finding new and creative ways where you can dial in how you want these things to work. And it comes, we have to implement the strategies so that you can actually, stake in them. But what if you have a strategy that is earning you another token, right? And you want to be able to route that token to something else that will then put that token to work for you in another strategy, right? So, what if I said that by staking WAT, you could earn maybe Pulse coins, and you can take those Pulse coins and route them into your vault, your liquid loans vault within our amplifier, and add them to what you're running the Haunted strategy, allowing you to then even more quickly get to that next loan level to be able to buy more Pulse, to build your position, or to compound into something else like Hex or Flex or something else that you want that's also generating you income, right? You see how you're stacking these things on top of each other, and you're creating more and more income sources because you're putting everything to work, right? Because one of the things that when I went down my personal finance journey, 4 or 5 years ago, I started this process was I want every dollar of mine to be working, right? I don't want a dollar sitting on the couch eating Cheetos, watching TV all day, right? It's got to be out there working, bringing more buddies home. And if it's not doing that, then I'm leaving opportunities behind, right? And this is a way to actually intertwine all these things in the ecosystem. It's called an ecosystem for a reason, because these tools are designed to be linked together and actually allow you to then truly have a yield compounding engine across all of these concepts that we're bringing to the market. It's mind-blowing when you really start thinking through these strategies. If you looked at some of the liquid loan strategies, there's a gentleman, Red Squirrel, who came up with a sheet that I shit you not is about 10 feet long.
Where is that? Where do we find that sheet?
The Red Squirrel strategy.
He's in a bunch of Telegram groups. If you ask him, he'll send it to you.
Oh, yeah. He is linked together basically every project on Pulse Chain that has any way of staking or generating income into a way that he can funnel it all back into his liquid loans vault, which then allows him to take more loans because you have more collateral, which then means you can compound it into other things.
So much good to do,
right? So you can see we're creating these environments to help simplify this process for you, and we're bringing it together so that we're trying to make these easier as we're evolve over time. And this is why we were talking about trustless versus immutability. Immutability means you can't make any changes, which means you can't ever improve, right? Trustless means you're taking the middleman out. So we can take the middleman out, right, without going immutable, which means we can continually improve on these things.
But then you are the middleman
from the community.
But then you are the middleman, right? Is that what you're talking about?
No. So immutability means that you just can no longer make changes to something, right? You burn the keys and you can no longer change that contract. No one can change it, even if you want to make a much needed improvement, right? Trustless means I'm taking a middleman out so I don't have to go through them just to get something done. So you can have something that still has admin keys so people can make improvements to it that is trustless, where it is just you.
But then it's not trustless then.
No,
Well, listen, the
it's just
blockchain-
you and the code.
You also need to understand the core blockchain itself
See, I'd like to hop in here.
is not immutable.
Correct.
The devs will continuously put safety upgrades in place, like for years and years to come. Right, so it's really challenging to say, well, we want this little individual protocol to be immutable. However, the blockchain itself is not immutable.
But I think
where I get
clear
at
about
with
the
it.
language.
That's where I
being
get
clear
at
about the
with it.
language
It's
is
like
helpful.
it's all about
exactly
language,
what you're
but at the
talking
end
about.
of the day, there's always some point of like there's always a point of somebody who's got. I've never seen anything that's not like. I mean, you say there's middlemen. I guess that the point is there always going to be protocols that have middlemen that people use? Yes. You know what I mean? And that's not, I'm not saying that's like my favorite thing in the whole entire world, but like I like simple ass investment strategies, but I know people just want easy access, and that's what someone needs to provide it. Someone will provide it. It doesn't matter. And why would you rather it on our team? They're on our team. They're in our Telegram chats. They come on our show and say like, that's good. You know? So I think
The
like,
ecosystem. Yep.
yeah, like stuff like Celsius, like Mashinsky was clearly up to no good the whole entire time. That was easy to call, easy to see, easy to kind of smell, but but
you there's always an underlying level of trust, no matter what.
yeah,
Even in immutable protocols, what if there's an immutable protocol where somebody has 95% of the supply? You have to trust that person has their own and everybody else's interest at heart, that person doesn't lose their keys, that something doesn't happen. There's always, it doesn't matter what protocol you look at. You have to trust the team. So when I look at protocols, I ask myself, are these guys good guys? Do they know what they're talking about?
yes.
Does this product have a good product market fit for years to come? People will want to use this. And then you also look at the security measures they have in place. Is it feasible for this thing to be immutable, right? Because some things are easy to be immutable, but then other things are not, like bridges we talked about. And just put it all together. And once you like understand that literally not everything can be immutable. It's impossible.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I'm kind of
Right?
learning.
But
that
if
as I
all the
go.
rest of the pieces are in place and it's a solid team with a good product and it's not a Ponzi, then you say, you know what, this might be something that I want to get into.
It's so interesting.
I see software eating away at all the trustless, the things where people trust humans. Is that, I mean, you just look at reality, right? And it continues to eat away at that. And that rate at which it's eating away at it is accelerating, right? So you're going to see this continue iteration. Like, yes, I'm bringing it up here, but next year it's going to be more and more things that are trustless. Next year, it's just going to continue to evolve, and maybe it's not the case today, but
could be 1 year,
2 years. You're like, hey, this one piece, we've iterated on it several times, and it's ready to go, lock and load. We're going to keep it the way it is at this one piece. Now we can build pieces around it that are separate, that are added to it, but this specific core piece is immutable, right?
And if you have on and off bridges for shit on like major stuff, like it's over. Like, not saying it's everyone's investment strategy to buy this either. Like that's not everyone's. Some people are just rich and they want to have hex. I know people that are rich and they want to have Bitcoin because it doesn't go up and down as much, and it makes them feel more secure.
So that goal,
so
Sam,
everyone's
described
strategy is different, you know.
Yeah, I mean, what you just described of iterating until you're happy and then you lock it in, right? That is very much a goal that we have here within PowerCity. Within certain aspects, right? As far as once we can get something to where we can lock it in and no longer make changes to it for certain things like Flex, right? We can make that immutable. It's doing one thing and it just needs to do that one thing very well. But Accelerator or Amplifier, where you're constantly adding new strategies and you're adding new things that you can route stuff to and new strategies to point to new DeFi, you can't burn those keys. Otherwise, you'll never be able to adjust those.
Couldn't you
right?
just start with the pinhole, like this thing? Okay, this is immutable, guys. This is immutable. Like for me, right? Like I like that. It's appealing to me, right? And I understand there's millions of fucking dollars. There's plenty of people. It's going to help with the adoption, 100%. But I'm like, okay, this one thing, this with Pulse X, that's immutable.
Yeah. So,
We're going to now
the
add
thing
on
is,
this piece.
liquidity pools can change, right? So a protocol that you're farming tokens from, maybe the farming rewards are voted out and that no longer earns anything. What happens to that strategy, right? Or maybe
Drop
the
it.
protocol that you're farming against has changed from one liquidity pool to another because maybe they upgraded their token. Maybe they changed their pairing and they went from being primarily paired with Pulse to primarily paired with PUSDC or something like that, right? Hex went through a big change where it was primarily paired with ETH. Now it's primarily paired with USDC. Well, you have to change your strategy to be able to pivot and point to that new source, right? If you're immutable, you're screwed. You have to launch a new strategy. You have to beg everyone to get out of that strategy.
If it's modular, right? Then you can just drop that module and add on another one. Now it's like this is with this part of it.
But
right?
you have no way of
There's
forcing
only so much you can predict.
Yeah, so as soon as the market changes and you're like, oh, new market dynamics happened, this new thing came along, right?
Correct.
I think
There's
it's
still
a discussion. We don't have to go down this rabbit hole. I think it's interesting, but
there's still liquidity in
about
Uniswap
trustlessness, I'd like
V2.
to add one thing.
please.
That see, you were saying that Uniswap was trustless, but did you know that when Uniswap version 2 launched, they like every time you make a swap, you are calling the contract Uniswap V2 router 2. Have you ever thought what happened to the router 1?
I'm not aware of this. I wasn't also the person who mentioned that it is trustless. Is Uniswap trustless?
Nothing's
Yes, it
trustless.
Pardon?
Like, what is
Yes.
trust? Is there anything that's trustless?
It's immutable.
Okay. So you're saying Uniswap V3 is immutable. Is that accurate?
All Uniswaps are immutable.
Okay, cool. And there's a router that was added in December, from what I'm aware of, that routes it to V2 when appropriate. And you're saying what happened to a router to V1? Is that
No,
am I
that's
understanding
just
correctly?
what you're talking about. That's just the front end. There was no contract additions. But what my question was, whenever you made a swap on Uniswap V2, if you checked Etherscan, the contract that you were actually calling was Uniswap V2 router 2. Now, have you ever wondered what happened to the router 1?
Mm-mm.
So the thing is, Uniswap team worked on Uniswap V2 for 1 full year, and then still the day after launch, somebody came up with an issue regarding when they were swapping tokens that had fee on transfer, which was not already included in the swap functions. So they added an additional router as a wrapper around the primary core functionalities that had the base features and the swapping with fee on transfer tokens on top of it. And then they added that contract, and then for the front end, they swapped out the previous contract with the new one. Most people never notice that. You can call that, it is still kind of completely trustless, but it comes down to the question of what exactly do we consider trustless? Because then we relied on the competence of the Uniswap team to make that judgment call within 1 week after launch.
So this is really interesting. So what it sounds like they did, just because I've never heard this, they screwed up a little bit with their Uniswap V2. They redid it the next day, and all they did is change their front end and didn't tell anybody. So their front end actually pointed to the new contracts that they had to build.
Yes, and
What
it's
you're
not a
doing,
mess
what
up.
you're doing.
It's just a lack of foresight regarding some kind of tokens. They were perfect with their suggestions, but even they got two formal audits, 3 independent audits, and even after that, nobody decided to point out that this might be an issue for this particular type of asset.
I think you're pointing to my solution, though. Pick one area, make it immutable, and then add on as you see appropriate. I don't need to necessarily know that you're adding on an additional strategy. I just want to know that this thing here is the immutable piece of it, right? And
See,
what you're
again,
describing what I'm talking
Yeah,
about.
just to solve your problem, the thing is, the way we need to see is what exactly is being trusted. Just because some contracts can be changed in the future doesn't mean that we can't make predictions. There are still limitations on what exactly can be changed about it, how frequently it can be changed. And see, just because a user can change paint the outside of your house doesn't mean he can enter your house and steal your belongings.
Correct.
So the Uniswap team, they had the ability to change the router for all future swaps, but they didn't have the ability to steal the funds from any of the liquidity that had already been added.
That's what I'm
That's the
talking about.
same. That's the same thing with most of our stuff. When we make Flex, like Flex is completely immutable except just one function, the pool that it is going to be swapping from. Similarly, for the core, we are going to make adjustments on withdrawals and emission rates and future pools, and that core is a really vast thing. But my point is that doesn't mean that we have the ability to steal the money that you have staked on our protocol.
Yeah,
There are
but just
limitations
like
to what we
Celsius
can and
doesn't
can't
have
do.
the ability to steal the
still have
Celsius,
the
but they have the
ability to fuck
ability
up.
to do whatever they would like. Is like HODL mode, for example. When I bought Celsius a year and a half ago, I sold it way like long ago, so I hadn't really thought about it much. I was not aware of HODL mode. I'm glad I didn't have to engage with HODL mode, but I think it seemed to me that they could just add stuff that changed the game. They didn't steal my shit.
That's a lot different. That's a
No,
lot
no,
different.
no,
though.
no, no.
Like,
I would like to
I'm
rectify
just
one
wondering.
thing.
I'm just talking
So,
concept
like-
related.
like
You
what
see,
Power
but the
City
thing
has
here
is smart contracts. You're interacting with these smart contracts, and Power City can make limited parameter changes to those smart contracts to keep it updated and relevant. What's different about that than something like Celsius is with Celsius, you're literally just giving your coins away to some central entity, and they can then do whatever they want with them. And they go invest that and lose all your money and then become fractionally reserved and don't have enough money to pay out everyone the returns they were promising. And it just becomes just a big, giant mess because you gave your coins away, not your keys, not your coins. But that's very different than interacting with something like Uniswap or Power City, like that's on chain.
See, the very basic difference here is Celsius is a product that was marketed as you give us your money, we do whatever we want with it, and you agreed to it the moment you decided to deposit. There was a verification transaction that you had to sign, agreeing to them having complete ownership of your money. But with PowerCity, we never said that you give us your money, we do certain things with it, and if we mess up, it's your responsibility. We are not doing that. If that was our business, then that was a completely different perspective. What we are doing is you do whatever you want with your money. We have these many provisions, you choose. Now, somebody else can later and down the line decide to offer a feature where they play the role of the PowerCity Celsius. In fact, we would also provide one of those services inside one of our own products that provides them the service. But when using that particular service, that doesn't mean that they are impacted by the performance of some other service which it doesn't depend on. When they decide to opt into that particular service, they are voluntarily choosing to give up their money at the behest of someone else's discretion to do whatever they want with their money. But see, PowerCity is such a vast ecosystem, and there's so many products. When you're using any one product, you don't even need to know that the others exist. Most of them will be partially trustless. There will be certain changes that we will be able to make, like we can still add new staking pools, but there's a limitation to ability that we can't take away what we have already added to the previous staking pool. So that's the thing that you need to decide about trust, that how far are you trusting?
That's
Now,
the
imagine
thing,
if
though, how much stuff that it's hard to see because I haven't seen that much stuff survive since I started that had many components. Well, maybe that's not true. Like I don't know. There's so many. I'm not saying anything about like the product itself. There's just so many. Like crypto is crazy. Like it's a wild place to be, and there's risk associated with all of it. But it's almost like there is counterparty risk. Is it fair to say that there is counterparty risk? Like,
Most
I mean, just as a
definitely.
concept, like
Most definitely.
no,
Definitely.
it isn't.
Definitely. I mean,
No,
if
see-
somebody else has some control over fucking shit up like that, I mean, unless you're really defining counterparty risk,
just
as
like
being
at a
small
baseline,
niche,
like just
of-
at a baseline, not
of
like
course there's counterparty risk.
just like you could probably Hex has counterparty risk, kind of, because I mean, the OA could do shit. I mean, is that a counterparty? I don't know. I don't know what the consider.
Maybe
How far can the
counterparty
OA do
isn't.
shit? They can only influence the market price and the level of liquidity. The
That
OA
is
can never
that's
go
doing
and
a
steal
lot of
somebody
shit,
else's
though.
stake.
That's true.
So
See, the thing is, yes.
Go
So the
ahead.
thing is, there is limitation to what somebody can and cannot do. Now, when you signed up to using Hex, you agreed that I will be relying on the OA for moving the price action.
Right.
But now today, if somehow they decide that they are going to make certain protocol changes, but they would be able to adjust the individual stakes of users, you didn't sign up for that.
Right.
They wouldn't be able to do that.
Right.
And you're trying to say that that's how you're trying to structure things. That sounds like a PowerCity with the different pieces of it. It appears that that's how you're trying to do things. It sounds like. Is that accurate?
Yes.
I see where you're coming from. No, I totally get. Like, I'm just putting everything together in my mind too. These are complicated concepts. For just the whole blockchain ecosystem is complicated because there's a lot of social consensus involved, right? So like if I was creating a product, half of it would be like marketing and trying to figure out how to make people like it. People don't care as much about this conversation, right? Like we do, like as people that would maybe really think about putting a lot of money and dedicating way more time to something, we're going to pay really close attention. But the average user just wants ease of use. We could talk all day about what's going to go on, but people use Coinbase, don't they? A lot of people.
Well,
but I'm saying, like, just at a baseline, even like it's all about marketing at the end of the day. Like for me, that's how I always think about it. People are going to use whatever people are talking about, and in making it user friendly, and somehow somewhat lack counterparty risk is a good idea. You know, like it's interesting. For sure.
These are the questions that you need to ask about every project coming to Pulse Chain.
Yes.
Right.
Correct.
I mean, this is not just about one protocol. This is
100%.
anything you're looking at, right? You want to understand, you know, what's locked in, what can be changed, why can it be changed, right? And, you know, also understand that there are very good reasons why things need to be able to be adjusted or course corrected along the way, right? I would guarantee you, and this is my own personal belief, I'm just speaking for myself here. If Richard Hart designed Hex today, he probably would have made a couple of different choices in the design, right? NFTs weren't the big deal then. Maybe stakes transferable as NFTs would have been a day one thing, right? You know, there's certain efficiencies that perhaps might have been, you know, added in. But these are things that you learn after adoption, after usage, after technologies mature, right? But you can't go back and change it because it's immutable. So it's just a matter of knowing when to lock yourself into something, right? Versus when to continue shepherding it and improving it and listening to your community and watching what they're doing with it, right? The way that we're building these DeFi Legos here, we're going to be learning more from the community on how they want to connect all these things together than we can imagine ourselves, right? We want people to go figure out like, oh, well, if I take my rewards from over here and I want to put it over here, and can you do a strategy for this new thing over here so I can point to that, right? We need to learn from the community to be able to support that because we want them to succeed, right? And if you lock everything up on day one, you can't do any of that. So it's finding that balance between offering new functionality, improved functionality, more streamlined, more efficient functionality versus locking certain things in and walking away from it, right? Not walking away from a support or marketing perspective, but walking away from we're no longer making changes to it, right? So, you know, there's a good reason to do either. And you want to pick and choose and make sure that you're doing it in the right places at the right time, right?
And then asking those questions like we were just talking about with every single thing out there.
And we
Not
do
that
ask
one's
those
right
questions.
or wrong, but to GRC's point around marketing, I know Jesse had talked about this because Tuba had also mentioned this too, being the front end, right? It's such, we're going to see. That's what I'm going to see, right? I'm going to see this fucking front end here. And it's like, oh, this one's cool. Like curve.fi, right? Garbage. right? You look at that and it's absolute trash, right? Somebody could easily come out with 2.0 curve and it would be far more successful if they just did a new UI UX.
This is a
You don't
great
like the retro?
transition. This is a great transition.
No, that scares me, bro. Like, I
this
don't even
front
want
end.
to
Hey,
touch that shit.
Sam, look at this front end and see if you have any. I'm going to let this play for a minute and a half. See if any of these buttons ring any questions in your head. I'm going to be looking at it too, guys. This is really cool music too. So a good little break until we get into the last 26 minutes of the segment, guys. And at the end, there are a bunch of questions people ask that are a little more specific about the sacrifice and a bunch of other random stuff. I have them all starred and I'll save them for the end. So if you have any of those questions, just throw them down there and we'll ask right before we go. Let's play this real quick.
Okay. Nice. That's cool. I like how simple that is.
The colors are great and the design is great.
Well, can people just go to PulseX and purchase Y?
So Watt specifically will only be purchasable through the core. So there's an internal market maker built in. So you buy Watt from the core and you'll be able to then stake it in the core. The Flex protocol, you'll actually be able to swap and buy that through PulseX. So that one will be a little bit different, a different setup, but that one will rely on PulseX for the liquidity.
Okay, interesting. Jesse, you had mentioned you wanted to make some points about the front end here, and I'm curious to hear what points you wanted to make about different front ends, because I see PowerCity looks sleek, right? It's like seems very simple to use, unlike Curve, right? I see liquidity on Ethereum, and then I see
Curve's ridiculous.
the marketing of liquid loans, and it's way better.
Way better
perception. So go ahead, Jesse.
Yeah, so I think it's always a very positive thing when you have interoperability between different protocols. So, of course, anybody can run a front end for liquid loans. Anybody can run a front end for Uniswap. Anybody should be able to run a front end for PulseX. And like when you do that, like you're just giving more choices. And remember earlier when we talked about like on-ramping, bringing people in through different chains and stuff? Naturally, you're going to have certain protocols that bring in user bases that like to use like the particular thing that brought them to the chain to begin with. So when you have a protocol that interacts with other protocols right from their own front end, like it benefits everybody. It benefits the whole chain, right? So that's one reason interoperability is cool. Another thing that's really cool is like when you have the ability to use a token from one chain or from one protocol in another protocol, like that's always cool too. Now, many times you'll find that yield can get out of hand. For example, if the only place you have to stake it is one single place. But then if other protocols start giving options for you to do things with those tokens on their platform as well, then you'll see some sort of migration, and you'll actually see the yield go up on the base layer protocol, but then people are also earning yield on the other protocol that like some team built, right? The more places you can interact with coins, the better. The more places you can access different protocols, like that's also better. It's good for everybody. And PowerCity is doing a combination of that, you know, with the auto compounder and with the flex. And it's just a super positive thing for the chain, in my opinion.
That's cool. I'm looking forward to this coming out. I'm looking forward to Pulse launching. What are your David Feeder came on the other day, and I would be curious to hear all three of your opinions on this. He had mentioned 3 or 4 times. He's like, yeah, wouldn't be surprised if we get it by next summer for Pulse. Right. And I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are, because a lot of people like to think optimistically, right? I think that's probably human nature for a lot of people, unless you look at like the news, but we like to think optimistically about things that we're excited about. And I could easily see something playing out for next year launch time, and curious to hear, you know, what your guys' thoughts are. Jesse, you're unmuted first. So you want to talk about that?
Yeah. So it's impossible to know. We all think that like it feels like Pulse Chain's done, right? There's no new commits, you know, for some time. Richard's devs are working on like, it seems like some random stuff that doesn't necessarily have to be complete to launch the chain. So like some would argue, and I've kind of gone both directions on this, because Richard has said that he's not waiting for the bottom of a bear market. It's going to launch when ready. But yet at the same time, it literally feels like we're waiting for the, you know, some $11,000 Bitcoin before a launch, right? That's just what it feels like. Whether it's true or not, like, who knows? So who knows when it launches? But I will say the longer it takes, the better it is for the chain altogether, because more and more protocols will be built, audits completed, like numerous protocols. Like, wouldn't it be cool to launch a brand new blockchain with like thousands of protocols on it? Like we said at the beginning, that doesn't mean you're going to use them all, right? You're going to pick the ones that you like to use. But that is that's really cool. That's something that other blockchains really didn't do. A lot of blockchains either had some sort of it felt like stealth deployments, and then, you know, protocols started to trickle in and launch on them, and they had to build from the ground up. But with all this delay with Pulse Chain, what you're seeing is like dozens and dozens of protocols that are launching complete and ready to go. And that's not even taking into consideration all the cloned tokens, which who knows what those will do. A whole other conversation altogether.
The long vacation, and then I want to hear Tuba's
real quick, just before I got a DM from one of the founders over there at PowerCity, and Toshi Flow, and he said if you DM him, he'll send you Flex testnet tokens. So I'll put his Twitter right here. So he said if you DM him, he'll give you some Flex testnet tokens so you can play around with the testnet, guys.
If that's your thing, go check it out. We'll share that into the comments on both channels to check out.
Good call.
Long vacation.
Yeah, there is a Flex LP on PulseX, right? So you can go see the token there. But yeah, he can hook you up with some to go play around with. The protocol is not ready, so the actual front end for Flex isn't there yet. But the tokens are out there if you wanna mess around with them. As far as where are we in Pulse Chain deployment, you know, the way I look at it is things just kind of fell together, right? We weren't. I don't think Richard was looking for a bear market per se, like timing the bear market, but it just happened to come along. And if you're here, right, never let a disaster go to waste. So why not just do some of the optimizations that you're already planning on, that you already want to do, that are going to require a much more complicated migration in the future? Why not do them now, right? If you can take a few more months, right, whether that's 6 months or longer, and do those optimizations now and vet them now and test them now before people go live, right? You're going to have a 10 times better experience once you actually do go live and it'll happen to be probably better market timing in the end, which is kind of convenient for everybody, right? So it's kind of like the stars aligned and the heavens opened up, the angels sang, and we have this chance for an even better rollout for Pulse Chain with this even faster and more efficient through some of these optimizations that are being done. Didn't have to be done from day one, but you know what? Hey, if we can get them on day one, why not? And like what Jesse was saying, if we can have more protocols then to have more time to finalize and be vetted in test public test nets and actually go through some real world testing in a public test net, then while you're forking over all of Ethereum, right, most of those projects won't be operational. They're going to be borked on fork because you won't have oracles and graph support and all these other things that we want, right? Or what they rely on today on the Ethereum side. Well, instead, all those people who get those free airdrop tokens, they're suddenly going to find many more protocols that are natively built for Pulse Chain up and running on day one, something that they can put all those fork tokens into and go do something with, right?
Very interesting. Thank you for sharing that. I agree. The stars seem to be aligning. I'm thinking about like a 11K launch with a 90% drop off launch because people are going to pull their money out. But Tuba,
after a year down.
Yes, Tuba. I would love to hear your input on switching from the Solidity to the Go, whatever it is, language for the EVM blocks, and what your thoughts are on the importance of this and how that helps things moving forwards, because I don't have the fucking understanding of that.
So the thing is, I have some really weird theories about Pulse Chain launching, so I would rather not disclose that portion of it.
Oh,
But
you gotta lay that
regarding
out there and then not talk about it?
But the decision to switch from the validator rotation from Solidity to Golang is a much better decision because it's a huge performance improvement. And see, the thing about blockchains is the only service that it provides is the thing that you would try to exploit is the thing you would lose when you try to exploit it. So now imagine it like you have a safe made of money. There is nothing inside the safe. The money is the safe. The safe is the money. Now, the moment you try to break into the safe, you lose the money. That's the great thing about blockchain, the whole sandboxing from the outside world. Now, the way EVM provides is in the form of the EVM. Now, EVM has a very low performance is a very low performance system, and it's not that efficient. Now, for functions that rely on core utilities of the chain itself, not just the dApp interactions, it's a much better decision to move it outside the sandbox into the Golang code base so that faster changes can occur. And maybe they ran into some issues with more frequent chain splits when the validator rotation was inside the Solidity, because there would be instances where some validator needs to be slashed out early on, but they are slashed on much later because the whole processing time took sufficient time, and they could bring other nodes that are live along at the same time down with them. Now, figuring that out and making that change as fast as possible is of utmost importance. One thing that we might lose is when the whole validator rotation was inside the EVM, the whole chain was basically somewhat like Tezos, where you could make governance changes and upgrade the whole chain without relying on majority node providers agreeing, but the stakers just agreeing. But this moving it outside of it just removes that provision later down the line. Aside from it, the job that the Pulse Chain team is doing is great.
What is
Yes.
what is the validator rotation you mentioned?
Validator
What does that mean?
rotation it's basically every epoch there's a fixed set of validators. They are finalized as they can only be the block producers for the next epoch. And until that time happens, the guys that have been selected, if they show performance throttling or latency issues, then they are dropped out. They are given certain slashes and warnings, and I don't remember the other two things that was in the list. and then they are pushed out of the validator rotation, and more frequent slashes even prevent you from participating in validation for a certain period of time. So it's basically
We're gonna
keeping the
have to
most
talk to
performance
Feeder.
nodes in the network and push out everybody else.
Yeah, I've read a little bit about that, but I'm still super like nuanced learning to the whole server thing, or to the validator.
Do you want to pull
thing.
up some of those questions?
Well, I do. Bullish wants to come on and share a couple of things real quick.
What's good, Bullish?
What's going on, everyone? It depends, Sam, on how much time you have, because I know you have a hard cut.
I've got that call at 1 o'clock, so I've got like 5 more minutes.
All right, so yeah, finish whatever questions you have. I just want to share something real quick before we go into the questions.
No, I was going to tell GRC to jump into the questions, and then I can just jump off. I'm curious. I'm going to just learn as much as I can while I can, and then I'll just jump off, take a piss, and get on the next
Please
call.
explain the sacrifice bonus by the Pulse Chain PulseX wallet sacrifice. That dude asked that like 3 times.
Sure. So basically, if the wallet address, the sacrifices for PowerCity, is in the sacrifice set for those other events, right? The wallet address has to match up. Then, and we were taking the full sacrifice set along with the wallets that participated in the Legion VC and the Magic Carpet Ride and Magic Toshi Ride pools. So if you pulled together for Pulse or PulseX or Liquid Loans in any of those groups, we also have the underlying wallets that participated in those, so they can get that bonus as well. So if the wallet address matches, then they will get an additional percentage. If you go to sacrificenow.io, it shows you the individual percentage that is provided as a bonus for each of those events. If you were in all 4 of those events, the maximum combined bonus is 55.55%.
Thank you for explaining
that fan club. Wait. Yeah. No.
Why wait
till launch Flex on Pulse versus launch it on ETH and get a copy? Good question, Bullish.
ETH fees. ETH fees are exorbitant, right? And if you are continually churning ladders of stakes on a monthly, semi-annual, annual, and so on basis, right? You are consuming a lot more gas on the Ethereum side due to the added expense of the S-load function on that chain, right? So to end the stake is expensive. So doing that on Pulse Chain will be significantly cheaper, and you can churn through those stakes much more efficiently with a lot less gas. Otherwise, Flex would be a significant gas consumer on the Ethereum side for sure. It would eat into the user's rewards as a result of that.
But it's still going to be cheaper for the user. Because say me and 1,000 friends decide to pool our money together, effectively what Flex sounds like, right? Then instead of me and 1,000 of my friends paying gas fees, now they're all in this pool, and this pool pays one fee that is distributed across all of these. And if the sequence was monthly, semi-annual, yearly, 5-year, whatever somebody's prerogative is on how they want to structure that, those fees are now distributed over the 1,000 people instead of me paying, you paying, this next person paying, this next person paying. So the aggregate fees are tremendously smaller. Plus, like giving a free token to people is super appealing from a lot of people's perspective with a copy.
It is. Go ahead, Tuba, please.
So the thing here is that we are already working on the design phase of Flex, and we haven't taken any final decisions yet. We are working on multiple instances of it, one where there's a pooled version of it, one where there's an individualized tokenized version of it that's tradable. Now, for the pooled version, it would make sense to launch on Ethereum. But for the individualized version, it gives a much higher level of flexibility to the user, because there are no locking durations, no fixed event times. You have to deposit your money within this duration. You can withdraw only after this much time. None of that is there. And that's why we're preferring the individualized model with some sort of pooling function to operate the automations. But
it's almost like an automatic ladder builder for people in a sense. It sounds like with the individual structure.
That's how you would describe it in the most simple form. But again, see, new ideas come up every single day. And just a day or two ago, we came up with a new thing that we could look into. Imagine if everybody has certain ladders of stakes. Now you have certain shorter duration stakes and certain longer duration stakes. Somebody else has certain shorter durations and longer durations based on their own requirements. Now imagine instead of having to take a huge hit on your longer positions by getting a penalty and breaking apart all of them, you could sell your longer positions in exchange for someone's shorter duration positions at a discount. So you wouldn't lose as much as you would if you had to close those long positions. And the user who is selling you those short term positions is gaining the additional long term positions at a discount than he would have had he deposited himself. Now, with Hedron on the HSIs, you can do most of these staked instance P2P trading. But there's a huge lack of data on what exactly is the thing that's being traded and lack of statistics on what would be a good trade. Now, what we do is we can always provide more data, but we went a step further that you wouldn't have to take in a decision at all. Just like some things that liquid loans does is it transfers off the collateralization level to stakers and other things. We could take a page off their book and we could migrate the risk from someone's books to somebody else's who is willing to pay a premium for it, but offering a discount on the asset that is being exchanged for. So basically, imagine you have certain staked instances. Each instance holds a few number of short-term stakes that you decided how long you want to, a few number of long-term stakes that again you decided how many you want and how long you want. Somebody else has a few short-term stakes and long-term stakes. The other guy doesn't have any need for emergency withdrawal right now and is willing to hold on to his position. You could sell your long-term stakes to that other guy in exchange for his short-term stakes at a discount. He would be getting a discounted fee on the long-term stakes. You would be getting a much better rates than you would get if you were to directly close the long-term position. And you wouldn't even have to go find that other guy. The protocol does it for you.
Do you think that, right? So conceptually, I completely understand what you're saying, and there's probably a couple people that do who are listening. But when you start to build tranches individually, like what you're describing, it's I mean, you lose a lot of the audience. Personally, like there's a lot of people who are like, that's too fucking complex for me, right? To like, we might like that stuff. We might find it interesting. But when you start building individual tranches of legs and then you can trade those with other fuckers, like love it. It's cool. Like, I mean, finance people, nerds is awesome, right? But it seems like it's possible you could lose some people in that sense because like
Just see, that's how I'm describing it. But when the user is using it, think of it like somebody like Haunted comes up with a ladder strategy, makes a YouTube video about it. The user learns that he needs to make a 3-month stake, a 1 year stake, a 5-year stake, and a 15-year stake. He does in those exact proportions and those exact amounts based on the money he is investing. He just presses a few buttons, selecting the amount that you want by moving a few sliders, and then he presses OK. And then he presses OK. When he wants to exit, he just presses exit, and everything that I describe is happening underneath. He doesn't have to execute that trade. The trade is being executed on his behalf by the platform.
Well,
Just one more thing. Additionally, the ladders that you created, all the auto compounding that is being handled is again being handled by the protocol itself.
And I'm sure, like we're talking about it in to describe what it is, but given the look and feel of the little video you guys had and the PowerCity website that GRC pulled up, I fully expect this to be having a very comfortable, easy to use like interface. This has been awesome. I know you guys are going to continue for a while.
Sam,
I have to go.
Before you leave, check this out. So I have the audio kind of low for copyright reasons, but check this out because I'm sure you didn't see this.
Fuck it.
No longer stand between me and my destiny. I will.
Victory.
What the heck was that?
Oh, don't worry, buddy. I got more. I got more.
I don't know what that was.
I got more.
What is it? I don't
Hold
understand
on.
what it is.
I really
Go ahead, Sam. You can drop off.
Bullish, GRC, Jesse, long vacation. Appreciate you guys. Tuba, thank you for all the details around things and everybody's perspective. Learned something new. I appreciate you guys. Hope you guys are crushing it, and I'll talk to everybody soon. Peace.
See you out, Sam.
GymRat.
I love it. Sam is He-Man.
Yeah. So GymRat, you ready?
Yes.
You ready, GymRat?
Let's do it. Is that me? Is that my face? Oh my God. Is that my face? That's not. I'm so confused.
Hercules, nice.
So shout out to Hex is the way. So
Hex is the way.
As we all know, Romanian Dav is our meme guy, and since he had a newborn, Hex is the way stepped up, and he's been killing it with the meme. So he has literally deep fakes on everyone from Wendy's, Sam.
How does I do that with the face?
So that's all AI stuff, and graphics cards.
Dude, there's so many UFC knockouts that I want to have like two people's faces on, and I always wonder how I could do it.
So if anyone wants to check out a bunch of deep fakes, he has deep fakes literally on everyone. Go check out his Twitter. He's been crushing it lately.
So that was awesome.
That's awesome.
So we can go around the panel one more time. Like, what are you guys excited about? We don't have to talk about your pulse chain predictions or anything. I don't really care about all that stuff. But, what are you the most excited about? What would you like to tell the people basically about what you got going on? What do you think the most appealing pitch for what you got going on at this moment and what you're excited about? You can just go around starting with the long vacation and then we'll go around.
Sure. Naughty Panda actually described it really well last night in our Telegram. Just that basically, what if you had a single token that you staked that provided you a share of revenue from 5 other protocols on Pulse Chain that are doing key DeFi services, providing key DeFi services, that you just have to participate in one place to have a share of all of that, to have exposure to the entire ecosystem, right? And even if you don't want to trade NFTs or use liquid loans or, provide liquidity and farm rewards there, or even use Flex, right? You have one place to be able to participate in all of that, right? That's unique. And no one else is building an ecosystem like this on any chain, let alone Pulse Chain. So I'm just excited about bringing this new set of DeFi money Legos to Pulse Chain in a new way to make it easy and flexible and customizable, right? And if we have something new and unique and really very, 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 I'm losing the words because my coffee is already wearing out here.
No, but, I know what you're saying, though. It is awesome. It's what you're building is something that you can change and move forward and grow, and it's sticky and it's a good ecosystem and it's cool. No,
then you have a reason to come to Pulse Chain, right? And we want people to have a reason to come to Pulse Chain and stay on Pulse Chain, right? And the more teams that can do stuff like this to drive people on the chain, we can help drive adoption. So ultimately, we all win, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. What about you, Jesse or Tuba, whoever unmutes first? Jesse, you can go first.
You will have to restate the original question. You sounded like a.
What would you like to tell the people before we wrap up in the next 10, 15 minutes about what's with you, what's going on with the project, what you're excited about, anything you want to shill or work on or talk about, or anything?
Interoperability is really good for any blockchain. Having ways for people to fiat or not necessarily fiat. We need that too, but having ways for people to on-ramp through bridges, not just back to Ethereum, but to other blockchains. In particular, like BSC, that's where all the degens hang out, right? And billions of dollars flow through there. We want those people to come over and learn about good, solid protocols that are long-lasting, right? So how do you get them? You got to build a bridge to BSC. You got to give them some things that they like to play with. Right now, you got to give NFTs to the NFT lovers, but then simultaneously, like, you're giving them protocols that are good and built by our quote Hexagon community, and
Doxed people.
dox people.
That's a big deal.
So it's all about bringing just mass adoption, giving people the tools that they like to play with, and then having interoperability back to the things that other people like to play with. When you can do that, you've just made a successful blockchain.
I think that was a great description right there.
And before Tuba talks, I just want to add on to that because GymRat knows this. I'm pretty much transparent, but I do a lot of stuff on BFC, and I've made decent money on BFC. I only hide it from the Hexagon community because it's it's shame on you kind of thing. But to Jesse's point, I spend more time of my adoption efforts on the BSC side than I do on any other chain because I'm in there. I know what works. I know the similarities. You know what I mean? I'm going in to understand what also is going to be coming out the Pulse chain from the good stuff on the BSC side and also the bad stuff on the BSC side.
Yeah.
So I'm in complete agreement.
In the trenches over there, figuring out what's going on. I don't go over there. I'm not ready. But
yeah,
I'm ready.
I play around with a lot of different protocols.
Makes you better too at like doing shit.
Even if it's just a couple bucks, because I think, hey, this thing looks like it might be like a broken protocol, but I want to understand it so that I can know better, like where all the different failure points are for like when I got into stable coins. Listen, I dug so deep learning how all these different stable coins function and why are these teams buying Bitcoin on a different chain and then claiming that it's backing the value. Like, so I would play around with this stuff and I'd look at it knowing that this thing is going to be a failure, but I need to understand it completely.
Exactly. And I've been very transparent with GymRat and even Sam, because sometimes they tell me, yo, dude, this shit is total crap. And I was like, yeah, but I need to know what crap is.
Yeah, it's true.
I can afford to, like, just I'm in a situation where I can afford, whether it's a couple hundred or a couple thousand, you know what I mean? And believe me, it's not, I'm diving a couple thousand into all these bullshit stuff, but I can afford to put a couple $100 and see what it feels like and see how it works. So when it gets forked or a copycat version comes onto Pulse Chain, I saw it already.
And don't ever FUD a protocol unless you can sit down and explain that protocol yourself.
Exactly.
Because it makes no sense, and you just look like an idiot if you FUD something, and then somebody says, "Cool, you're FUDing it. Tell me how it works," and you can't explain yourself.
Exactly. And like one of the things here, like, learning from my mistakes, I'm here to get to the truth and to understand how these things work, because I've made the mistakes twice and I'm not going to make it again. So if I have to lose, a couple $100 to learn from that mistake, I am completely willing to do it. And I'm not advising everyone else does it, but this is my journey. This is why I'm doing it. You know what I mean? And I'm completely willing to share whatever the outcome is of that.
I totally agree. I'm the same way. I actually have confidence in myself. So I in the future think, like, I don't really think about my like crypto as like all of my wealth. Like, it's just, I'm in a different situation though. It's just, if you're FUDing shit, well, everyone that does FUD shit doesn't know anything about it. So it's kind of like, if you are FUDing, generally, there's like 2 guys that like FUD shit properly. Like literally like 2, and they do like 20 hours of analysis on it, and no one else does that shit. because they just want to speak about their bags. What do Bitcoin guys do? They just want you to buy Satoshis so that they can have money. Like it's just the way it works. People just, they just support what they support. But some people hate their lives and decide to go on the internet and just say whatever. And that's a lot of people, believe it or not, What about you, Tuba Terminator, before we go, when it comes to like the immutability factor, the dev side of things? You had a lot of good stuff to say in there. I mean, you really did. And you cleared up a lot of stuff for me and Sam because you just know way more of the specifics. Anything you'd like to talk about PowerCity or anything?
So for my part, it's mostly that I have a lot of freedom to do whatever I want to build the stuff that I love. And the team gives me a very high level of freedom to make substantial changes in very short durations. And that's a great thing I can't appreciate enough.
And Tuba is constantly challenging us to think bigger. And he is the first developer and architect I have ever worked with who, pushes me further, right? Because I was always told when I worked with the bank, oh, you can't do that. You got to dial it back. You got to dial it back. That's just too much, right?
It's the worst. It was me. It's the worst. My whole life, everyone just limited beliefs, everything, always. It never mattered what it was. If it was outside the box, it was just limited, And then I was told, and it made me think that it made me think that everyone had an idea about life that I didn't. And then I realized over time that everyone was just talking ass. Because they don't want you to like figure stuff out that they don't know. Because it's like, I don't know. It's like a man thing. It's weird. But go on. I'm sorry.
No. But I mean, you got it exactly right. Tuba helps us, see the bigger picture, right? And it's been wonderful just collaborating with them and learning new things, right? And we're all teaching each other new things and being able to come up with, again, what really started as a single idea and has now turned into a full ecosystem of ideas and continues to blossom and bloom and evolve as we go through this whole building process. So sorry, Tuba, go ahead.
So see, even just the core implementation, we had 3 completely new iterations in the last 3 months. Sometimes even just we are about to launch and we are about to go in public testnet, and just 1 week before I go ahead that, guys, we could do this thing and it would be better. And they end up agreeing. So my point here is about the whole challenging aspect of it is, if you want to do limited stuff and if you want to treat it as a job, just take a job with a big tech company. The only reason we are an early stage startup and we have the flexibility to do whatever we want. So if we are doing anything, let's do it. Let's take it to the extreme. Otherwise, not take it at all.
Yeah. And these pivots that we've made, oh my gosh, it has made what we are building hundreds of times better than the original vision that we set out with back in January. And, having the ability to learn, right, and actually take those lessons to heart and make improvements, right, and commit to trying to do what is best for the community and what is best for the protocol long term, right? Those are the tough decisions. Could we just go rush something out just because we want to say firsties on testnet? Sure, right? Is that going to be the best thing that we can offer our users, though? Probably not. And going through these iterations and learning, right, and finding better ways to do it after we've also already gone through, how many other options and explored all those routes, right? That's how you come up with new innovation, new ideas, right? So we're proud to be able to, learn and apply what we've learned and evolve and try to build something that no one else is doing. And this latest iteration that we're working on is freaking exciting. It is truly new.
I can see what's going. I can see it. I can see what you're trying to say. Like the whole thing. Like I can see where you guys are coming from. It's fun. Everything you're doing is fun to work on, I'm sure, or at least there's some creative aspect to it, which is great. You can't find that in many places, and there's a scalability aspect to it, which is just more fun. It's just endless scalability possibilities, and they just come up every day. You're never going to have a month off. There's always going to be layer ones that come out. There's always going to be bridges that need to be bridged in. And once you guys get a hold, like, are just moving and everything's working, it's going to be crazy for everything, you know, like everything, all this stuff that's working properly is going to be amazing. I think that's what I like to hope. And my time is up. We've been on here for a while. This is the longest show I've done in a while. So this has been great, guys. I appreciate you so much for coming on and telling everyone about PowerCity and just kind of like giving everyone another 2 hours of insight, because that's what it takes, guys. That's why we do the long form content. It's not as easy. If you actually want to know what's going on, it's not as easy as just like hearing someone say one tweet. It's just not that easy, you know. Like, you have to understand there's a lot of nuance here within all of it, all the way down to politics, finances, all of it. It's all there. So you got to really know what you're talking about. And that's why we do this long form content. I don't think any 10-minute video is going to be able to get to the gist of, for the intellectual, of course. That's kind of what we're going after here. But anyway, guys, I dropped my Telegram and I dropped my Instagram below. I'm going to put all these guys' links below while the music video is going on at the end. And Tuba, if you want to put your Twitter or something that you use, anything like that, you might just be not using that stuff, depends. But you can drop that in there and I'll put it in the comments. Guys, this has been an incredible show. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
It's been awesome. And everyone, I hope you have a great day. And we'll see you tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern.
You already know what time it is.
Crypto in the morning.
Crypto in the morning.
Crypto in the morning.
Waiting on phones.
Crypto in the morning. Crypto in the morning.
Ready to take notes.
Crypto in the morning.
Crypto in the morning.
Crypto in the morning.
Waiting on phones.
Crypto in the morning. Crypto in the morning.
Ready to take notes.
Smoking a blunt on my way to the gym. 11 a.m. and I'm already tuned in. Got me some hacks and I'm making a stake. Got me some hydro, I'm making it rain. Pay me some maxi and that's just in case. GymRatCrypto sent me to show you the way.